I know. Okay. Well.
That's a whole word. Well.
We are in the usual place, doing the usual thing.
We're not doing the usual thing.
Um,
It feels like it, but we're not doing the usual thing.
Look, I just want my 80-degree, 70-degree weather back.
Man, I'll take the 90-degree weather. We walked in on snow on the ground.
Snow and ice. So,
Man, we are H&D Abroad. I'm Herman.
I'm Dee. We are a Move Abroad channel talking about the decisions and discoveries as we are implementing our Move Abroad in 2025. If that kind of content for a couple that is not retired, that is not moving abroad because we have investment incomes and other things that are going to grease the wheels of our move abroad. Like we're going to still be working. We're still going to want to incorporate a lot of the things that we have in our life today. In our move abroad, I am super excited to invite you to like this channel.
Like this video?
Please subscribe. Well, yeah, I was going to say, like this video, subscribe to our channel. We always want that invitation to be out there. But what makes our channel unique is majority of our content is live, which means you can ask your questions to people who are doing the thing. If it's something you have not considered before, there are a lot of people in our community that join us during the live to say, hey, like, how you do that? How are y'all doing that? So as you can hear, part of the life trials of the traveling 50 plus crew means,
you notice you didn't say rich and famous,
is that you have to take care of yourself. So there's going to be a video on the importance of taking care of yourself and how to build in that health care. Some things that I think I did right, and some things I probably should have slowed my roll on so that I probably could have had a voice coming back. So we have enjoyed over 5 weeks of rest time. We have shared our journeys from Central America to South America. Hello, Love Park Connection. That may be Angela, maybe.
Pierre's there.
I don't know. Pierre might be.
He's there. I have faith.
This is always a conversation. So we invite you, if you're joining us, just say hello in the comments. Tell us where you are in the world. If you are joining and you're catching the replay, always we feel the love of the replay gang. It is totally needed, and we answer your questions as well. So
we are a conversation whether we're live or not. So we always respond to our comments, the comments that we have, and because we are learning from this process continually, and we hope that we provide information either directly from us or from those who share in this space that will make anything of interest here helpful to you in making the choices you make in life. When we first started this channel, it was our objective to see everybody move abroad.
And there are so many ways to slice that.
We're learning. Process. We've learned that living your best life has to be where you are your most authentic self. We provide.
There we go.
Okay, make sure we're still connected here. Let's check, make sure it's still connected to this. Yeah, okay.
Okay. So saying hello to Alicia. Hello, Alicia Hawkins. Hey, Christina. Hi, Elise. I literally messaged Elise and said, we're awake enough to go live. And hello, Mother Evelyn. Thank you so much. These are sisters that I have met along the way. Some I have yet to meet, but this trip has given all the gives. If you have not been following us, we started off in San Jose, Costa Rica. Then we visited 2 cities and lots of good people in the country of Panama. Cannot wait to go back and like really do it up.
This time she's
Ecuador.
going to karaoke.
Ecuador was a beautiful place that I was under the weather there. I talked about that. But I still found ways to enjoy and engage and know that that's somewhere I want to go back to maybe for a while.
Oh, absolutely.
And then we wanted to share specifically about our time in Costa Rica. So we spent majority of our time in Medellin, and we spent our final day because we decided to fly out of Cartagena. 2 different environments, 2 different experiences. Y'all, the Cartagena video, we're going to do it and then upload it because I want you there for the laughs. I want you there for I cannot believe that happened. So more of that content that we'll be able to add with video. I was asking my husband if we love to do these and add the video or photos while we're talking about things. We got in late last night. I gifted myself rest this morning, so we will have that as a separate. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
it'll be some shorts where you all will be able to see.
Yeah, we'll probably after we close up today, we'll do a full. Would you want to talk about it today, or you want to talk about this trip that we just took yesterday?
No. I'm only going to talk Medellin today because. Yeah. Okay, so we are looking for some places to land. And so we built this extended partial scouting trip, part rest trip.
Correct.
To get some boots on the ground to know, is this city still in the bucket? Or we can go ahead and toss it out because it does not. Everything that we've researched, everything that we've investigated in the Facebook groups or that we've talked to attorneys about, it really is not a good match for us. So before you make time and invest money, I'm telling you, spend a little bit of time on the ground. So we back-to-backed it. So most of the time we were in a country for 7 to 8 days. We were in Panama for 2 weeks because of a house sit. So there are lots of different ways that we put this trip together that we think that that are important. We were really intentional about actually choosing an Airbnb in Colombia to land because that is more than likely how we will have to start out. And I figured that might be how most folks start out in a new place. Is starting with Airbnb. So we left beautiful Ecuador and took Copa Airlines. So thank goodness we already knew. We flew into Terminal 1 and had to walk to Terminal 2 again. If you have not... If you all have not watched the videos that we did about Colombia, we were already prepared. So we checked all our luggage. So the only thing we would have is my big purse and his backpack because you are going to trek through the Mall of America of Panama.
Listen, and I don't. What we heard, so you can verify for us, is that it's like you said, because of Copa. because it covers multiple terminals. I don't know if the whole process is like
they're
that.
headquartered. Copa is headquartered there, and it was best for us to go. We could have. There's several airlines, but Copa had the best schedule. We like to get to our destination on the first day pretty early in the day. I like plenty of daylight because I don't know how things might shift and change on the ground. I'm super glad it was not far from the airport. I think it might have been like a 25, 30-minute drive from the airport, the MDE, the main Medellin airport. And okay, so we knew we were going to spend 7 days there. What I did not do a lot of was I watched videos, but like usually I'm like all in the details. The first thing that I knew to expect is that if I didn't have transportation, they're going to come, the taxi drivers are going to come for you. Now they did in all the countries, but I just felt like it was really congested at the main Medellin airport. And so like, if like it does me, if a lot of people kind of in a confined space causes you a little bit of anxiety, just get ready for that. I feel like the airports in South America are trending toward smaller. There are a lot of us flying. There are a lot of airline options, discount airlines, high-end airlines, and everything in between. But it's a lot of people traveling, but the space is really confined. Checking in was okay. This was the first time the gentleman used Google Translate with us when we came in. But as we were able to do with every country, I printed out where we came from. I had printed out the next set of all of our, what do you call that? Our paid travel, because all of our trips were one way. And they're going to want to be able to either see a return ticket or and what your exit date is and where you're staying. So being able to have that and just hand them what they need, not your whole packet of information, because they will flip through. I was like, lesson learned. Give them what they ask for.
So Kim, we heard this. We don't know how to access that, and that'll be something we'll look into again.
Kim and Elise told us. I asked the Copa representative. We heard that there is a shuttle bus between the terminals, and she was like, sister. So I was like,
so we had to do a little more research on that, finding that, because
or what I need to do is, because I knew that I was sick, I probably should have just gotten us, went ahead and declared that I needed some wheelchair assistance or the mobile assistance, because I was huffing and puffing. Like I was still recovering from altitude sickness, which I've talked about in another video, but I also have asthma. And so it was a bit of a struggle because I was also wearing a mask, because ain't nobody got time for sickness or the panini to show up again on my trip. So
yeah, and I guess one of the benefit parts of it is it's a very wide open space. If it had been that kind of walking and been in tight hallways and whatever, it would have really have made that even more uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So the walkway areas, like you used the term the mall area, so it was broad. There were a lot of people, but we were in several airports, including where we were yesterday, that we were literally on top of people. It was like coming through Orlando airport, and everybody going to Disney. The Panama airport didn't had that level of claustrophobic closeness, but it was a trek.
We knew taking Copa, which was really great. I mean, I think we racked up a lot of miles for taking them to several countries, but I kind of knew what to expect. We paid a little bit more. We could have gone with the discount airlines, but because we had checked baggage, because I just kind of wanted to stick with the same airline, and I felt like that worked really well for us. We also were glad that Copa built in about a 2-hour layover in Panama. So make sure that you are giving yourself enough layover time, because some flights can, of course, there are delays and other things that can happen. But arriving in Medellin was super easy, super simple. Just make sure that you have your documents ready to present, answer the questions clearly, know your stuff, because if you're fumbling or looking nervous, I don't need to make them nervous. We were literally through immigration. You had a really great experience with the customs lady. It was like, I want to hang out with the customs lady.
Oh, she was super cool. She was super cool.
Because she was like, I see you all have on the mask. That's very smart.
And I think she was thanking us.
Yeah.
I think she was thanking us. The overall, and this is an aside, overall, I would have to say that all of our experiences, primarily going through customs and immigration, were positive experiences.
For you.
Yes.
Hey, when I got into Cartagena, I wasn't sure if I was going to get out.
Yeah, well, I wasn't leaving without you. So.
I was like, maybe I want him to leave me.
Yeah. You see how she treats me?
Anyway, so we chose Medellin for a couple of different reasons. One, a lot of my travel sisters were like, this place is a whole vibe. The way Anita described it, and she just started her channel. Now that I have a voice, I'll have her on my channel, but she was like, the Andes Mountains circle Medellin, and she says, like a hug.
Yeah.
And I could really feel that. Literally from my bed in the mornings, I could look out my window and see the mountains. As you all have heard me say, mountains and moving water are the two things that are really important to the place that I choose to spend a significant amount of time in. So that was absolutely beautiful. What was not beautiful? Okay. Colombia was also where we got our first SIM card, because I wasn't trying to talk to nobody in Colombia. I mean, in Costa Rica.
Ecuador was our first.
Oh, that's right. We did get a SIM card at the airport. Test it, call somebody, make sure that it works before you leave the airport. It was $25. In Ecuador, it was the sign said $8.99, but it was $8.99 for 7 days, since we were only going to be there 7 days, plus whatever the actual SIM card.
It was supposed to be the SIM card was $8, and it was supposed to be $35 coverage. She charged us a total of $30.
Yeah.
And when it was over, it was over.
Yeah.
And it covered in Medellin only, because when we flew to Cartagena, it wasn't talking to me.
Okay. I wasn't sure if we.
Yeah, I think it was only for Medellin, because when I got to Colombia, to Cartagena, it didn't work.
So once you go through immigration, you'll see there's all of the money exchange kiosk, which was convenient if you need it. And then when you kind of go around when you look to the right, there's also a young lady at a kiosk stand that and the information about how to have them add the SIM card was right there. So we got a little money before leaving, and we got a SIM card, which was great, because I did not realize that right out the door. I was like, oh, I got the welcome message from T-Mobile that said, you have coverage. When I went to try to get our DD, it was like, get the SIM card, get the SIM card. So literally you walk out the door to baggage claim. everybody is just kind of congested right there.
Okay.
Breathe.
Okay. Yeah.
What I have to say about DD, so Herman what is it called?
Hotspot.
He did a hotspot so that I
Mm-hmm.
could get a DD driver. And it was roughly about $20. May have
Because
been less.
it was $22, and that was the distance.
Yeah.
And not the regular.
So the DD driver, literally, we called it, he was there in 3 minutes. So
yeah,
as you all may recognize, rideshare is welcome but not welcome in many places. So like in Puerto Vallarta, we had to cross the bridge and meet our rideshare outside the airport. I think that is why he had us go upstairs to the arrivals.
Correct.
And he just came through, picked us up, and we left. Right. Because the taxi drivers are protecting, I guess, their business space, but just kind of know booking.com is something else that we used on this trip. I didn't do it ahead of time. I was sick. I had H do a lot for me, and there are just some things that fell through the cracks. But I was glad I knew that rideshare was available, and that it was going to be a pretty low cost and safe option. So we leave the airport. I have video going out. What I did not know, and thank goodness, I was only slightly triggered from my claustrophobia, undiagnosed claustrophobia, but confined spaces and I need to get out is a real thing for me. And so you go through a mountain, a couple of mountains on your way into Medellin. I actually saw a sister ask for a driver that would take her and not go through the mountains. So when we say you go through a mountain, I'm serious about it's about a 15-20 minute ride where you're just
and
going through the tunnel.
It's not puttering along like there.
If you've done
70 kilometers is probably close to 50 miles an hour. So they're moving along. And you can tell that they're used to the safety of it because when both drivers going and coming rolled up their windows, so they were conscious about the carbon monoxide, the air quality going through. But it's a ride, and it's not jet black. You know, some tunnels. There's a couple of DC, a couple of New York. They have the lights all the way through. It's darker.
Yeah,
it's lit, but it's darker.
So we actually did a video so you can kind of see the time stamp of how long it took us to get through both.
Right. And it's a shorter tunnel after that one.
Yeah.
But it's 2 tunnels to pass through, and it probably shortens the trip because from the airport to where we stayed was roughly 20-25 minutes. So it probably shortened the trip rather than going around.
Absolutely.
So it's just
you're
something
on
to be
the mountain
aware of.
And then you're coming into the city. It's okay. So if you've been to Mexico City, that's what it feels like. I was just like, oh my goodness, it's the Mexico City of South America. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of condos. It's a lot. There are a lot of condos. There are a lot of structures. So as you're coming into the city, you can see it from different angles. But what you could also see was the air pollution coming in. And so, at first I was like, are we in the clouds? Because we just left Ecuador. We were actually going through the clouds. We were in the clouds at over 8,000 feet, 14,000 feet above sea level. This was air pollution. Over the course of the day, the visibility of it burns away. But if you have upper respiratory issues, be aware, take your inhaler. I'm thankful above thankful that I paid $10 for that albuterol inhaler before I left Costa Rica. I got it as a backup, and then I got another prescription from the doctor in Ecuador. So I actually had two different kinds of daily maintenance inhaler and a rescue inhaler, because you are definitely going to be challenged, because it's not just the pollution, but it's also the heat.
So something that was asked up here, hold on 1 second. So BP said earlier, she was asking the comparison between Cuenca and Medellin. She heard Cuenca was greener. See, Medellin might be, as you'll hear over the course of this conversation, a tale of two cities, because the mountain range and how the cityscape flows up into the mountain range was very similar to the way it looked in Cuenca, but in a broader, more industrial, urban kind of way.
It's urban integrated greenery versus, it almost felt in Cuenca like the homes were like nestled into the mountain, where it's high rises, and buildings that are 20 stories high.
He used a good comparison with Mexico City, because the greenery you see, they didn't replant it. It grew there. They build around it. They let it exist. So the trees in Medellin, in the sidewalks, in the street, in the middle of the road.
There are lots of parks.
A lot of parks.
We didn't get a chance to walk down the middle, whatever that, like the boulevard that has the greenery in the middle. That's what I love about Mexico City. But they did have kind of that greenery in the middle of the street. So there's intentional green spaces.
Where Cuenca has kind of like an advanced village feel, advanced town feel.
Yeah.
Medellin is city, but not in a way that is overwhelmingly city. You don't feel like you're just in high-rise concrete. It doesn't overwhelm you like that. Now, having said that, it is where when we were in these other countries, Panama was probably the most visually advanced. Panama City was probably the most visually advanced area. Industrial, high-rise, urbanish look. Medellin was probably second in that. There's a lot of city life.
Same for San Jose, but in a different way. There weren't a lot of like condos, high rises that were a part of the immediate landscape in the suburban area.
Right.
We decided in Medellin to base ourselves in Laureles, which is, I think it's probably one of a great neighborhood to live in.
Without a doubt.
A lot of the things that we wanted to do were there. A lot of the people that we wanted to meet live there. It's a part of the city that really moves without it being touristy. I did not like the touristy. It was not my preference to spend time in Poblado.
No,
I don't like.
And she's saying touristy. I would probably say more expat like. It was very. When language, in any area, when languages shift from a common language to
the local language,
from a local language to a foreign language, it tells you where you are. I'm used to that being from Miami. You got the Cuban areas, you got the Caribbean areas, even New York. We transitioned in that particular part of town into a high English speaking. The words on the buildings, the names of everything switched to English. And it felt more, for lack of a better word, gentrified to me. It was a little overrun. It looked like an area that was an older local area that was slowly
transitioning,
transitioning.
not so slowly.
That was transitioning.
It was establishing itself as
an English area.
Primary. We were able to speak more English in some of those areas. So I that's not the point of my move. I really want to integrate locally and be in some areas, some transitional areas where I'm required to use my Spanish skills to have conversations and to connect.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not ready to do that. And it just, where we were, Loralis, yes, there were people who had some English skills that they worked with us. I worked with them, and it helped confirm for me, if I'm going to do this, to move in a way that is really how I say that I want to live,
Mm-hmm.
that I need to invest more to be a better local partner. So
it was very modern, but it was also very local. Where the part of town we were in, and the people were very engaging. It was quiet. We talk about city life and city living, and she always says, I want to be closer to the city because I want to have more access to things. And one of my concerns has been, or complaints, depending on how you look at it, has been city living in the US is nonstop. It's just ongoing. There's cars, there's sounds there. And as a environment sensitive person and as a light sleeper person, I'm always worried that it won't quiet down enough for me to breathe. 9-10 o'clock in that area, and we talking about places were open. But the sound level dropped 80%, and by midnight, even if places were open, there were no cars.
Now, at 8 o'clock, okay, so it was pretty quiet when we were walking.
Well, it was quiet at 8 or 9 o'clock, but it was still motion.
Yeah.
By late evening, by 10, 11 o'clock, it was still. Yes. You could still walk to a few places, get a few pastries, go to dinner, but it was like where it was moving traffic and motion during the day, it wasn't that. When we moved further into the heart of Medellin, it was a lot more active, a lot more. Again, Medellin was the city where we saw smokers. And I'm using that specifically as an example because rarely, if any, did we see in Costa Rica and Panama and I don't think any in Ecuador. It doesn't mean that there weren't people who were doing it, but like public smoking, there was a lot of public smoking, a lot more public smoking in Medellin. Is that Robert is asking, so this would not be a place we would move. That's not necessarily the end of the world for me.
I have to be cautious.
But there were things that were more evident. We talked about the visibility of sex trade, of air pollution, of cigarette smoking.
You said sex trade?
Okay, that's a bad frame. Sex industry. Sorry. Sex.
No.
That's not
sorry.
Good?
No.
Okay.
That I disagree with you on that.
Okay. Explain it better.
I saw lingerie shops. Yeah. Ladies, that does not.
No.
Okay. But I didn't see strip clubs on billboards advertised till we got to Medellin.
Right.
Okay. And so I wouldn't call that.
But I'm just saying. I'm not trying to make that a negative thing. Yeah. I'm just saying there were more Western influenced visible things.
And why would that be Western influenced?
Well,
people enjoy themselves in a variety of ways.
Maybe I'm making it sound negative. I'm not attempting to make it sound negative.
Okay.
No. So let me clear that up. That the intent is not to make it sound negative. One of the things that I've realized is people are sometimes drawn to and turned off by things that remind them of spaces that they're in.
Okay.
And people don't always say these things are visible and present. I heard somebody complaining once about graffiti. Graffiti doesn't bother me, but there was probably more graffiti there than most of the places. There's muraling everywhere going through Latin America, which I think is great. Mm-hmm. But there was probably some additional like graffiti type things as well. That doesn't bother me, but I've heard people say, oh, it made it look trashy, or, you know, and I think sometimes we don't share some things that are visible.
Yeah.
And so I'm simply stating things that were more visible there.
Yes.
Than I think that weren't necessarily visible in the other countries we visited.
Agree.
So again, I apologize. It's not an attempt to make it sound like it's a negative thing, because personal choices, I don't judge on that. I don't want to say surprised. Maybe that's a bit it, because it was so visually absent where we were in the other countries, and it was far more visible here than other places. There wasn't a sense of debauchery or, you know, that's not what I'm sharing.
It was just a surprise to see it because we had not seen it. Maybe or we had not been in areas where that was visible. So I agree with you. It was different to see. And there's a healthy nightlife in Medellin, in Laureles, in other parts of the city. I initially was going to make sure that we included time in Envigado, which several of our friends talked about, kind of being more of more of a small town feel, but what I was listening to was, yes, there are probably more homes there, people with children, small families are there, or young families are there, but that most of the people there have cars. And so depending on the time of day, if you go there into Envigado at the beginning of the day, make sure you are heading back into the city, because it could be more difficult to get rideshare because most of the people there don't use it. So that was really good information, because we don't plan to buy a car where we're going, and definitely want rideshare to be affordable. And we've talked a little bit about coming into the city for less than $20, and
didn't spend $5.
And most of our trips were $1. No, somewhere between $1 and $3. Correct. And we were going to different areas in Medellin.
And that was usually either because it was a little further to walk, or we were in a time constraint,
or it was hot. Or y'all, it was hot in Medellin.
Yes, it
in
was.
The beginning, and the early mornings. So like I walked to the doctor's. I planned to walk to the doctor's office. I got up late. But what I realized was that somewhere between 6, 7, and maybe like 10 or 10 o'clock, maybe 11 o'clock, it was really comfortable to walk outside. As the sun heats the air, I would cough a little bit more. Right. And because my breathing was labored, it made the walk a little bit more unpleasant, unless we were going to the Jamaican restaurant.
So I did not experience, and you can tell me if you felt differently, I did not experience humidity. It was hot. It was direct sun hot. Now, one of the things I have found to be common weather-wise across the countries that we have visited is do your business in the morning or do your business in the evening.
Yeah.
There is a reason that there is siesta in some countries, including Spain, because that middle of the day sunshine, and I'm specific about that, sunshine, and in some places also humidity. We will be talking about Cartagena separately, and I'm gonna keep saying that, but there's no reason to wander around out there in the middle of the day. There are places to go to sit. I mean, you can be out there. One of the beauties of probably most of the places we got around to in Medellin, speaking back again about the greenery, those natural trees growing in the sidewalk and everywhere, is there are places to walk and stop shaded, versus in a typical high-rise urban city where it's just buildings and sunshine and concrete and heat. There are places to kind of step out of the sun. There are little restaurants and stores everywhere, several of which we got a chance to visit and we're really excited about.
Or just places to sit, to see people. That was something that really touched my heart, was to see people sit and just, they're sitting reading a book, they're sitting watching what was going by. People sat to have a coffee, to have a pastry, like it was a thing.
Right.
People are experiencing life. I did not see people walking with food, eating. I did not see a lot of that. People are invited to sit and rest, or they're taking advantage of these green spaces to rest individually, or to relax with a person. And I like that. When we were, I'm referencing Cartagena, but like heat and humidity places that I've been, whether that's been in the States or abroad, you get up at light, at first light. You are not trying to beat, you're trying to beat the sun. So when it feels safer to me in new places to go out before at first light, and then find my way back in during the first part of the day. So I did want to definitely wanted to mention the temperatures, as well as any other environmental things. So most of the time that we were there was some rain. There was definitely more rain in Cartagena. I'm sorry, in Cuenca, like in the early afternoon. In Medellin, it was kind of some rain at the first part of our trip, but not a lot in the second part of the day.
Right.
So,
and rarely did it just open up and rain. There would be little light sprinkles. There'd be, it would rain. There were a couple of like full rain, but did anything last 30 minutes, an hour? And it did not produce, again, from Florida, it did not produce this short rain create a whole steam effect. It didn't turn into that. It actually cooled that off a little bit.
Yeah.
The people are really engaging.
What I appreciated was that there were some folks that were frustrated that we were not Spanish speakers. Even when trying, I could make the attempt to do. So one example, I wasn't going to ask anyone to help us check out. So their Éxito is the name of the grocery supermarket chain that was kind of all over the city. We went to several of them. And so I wasn't taking out Google Translate. I was like, these things all work the same. Push the button, scan your stuff. It'll say how much. Either I put the money in or I tap my card. Yes, they do.
It was where she was more adventurous than I. I'm adventurous with the conversation, just looking at buttons and pushing them.
Yeah. What I did also learn, this only happened in Poblado, where it asks you if you wanted to keep your price in pesos or if you wanted to pay in dollars.
Mm.
And be sure to always choose pesos.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether you are, at a restaurant or at the, what do you call that? At the ATM kiosk, always choose the convert it locally and not have the bank, convert it into USD.
Tell them why.
It's just because the money, it costs more.
Mm-hmm.
It costs more. So could we drink the water? I don't think we said that. Could we drink the water out the tap? Yes.
Both there and in Ecuador.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
In Panama, we chose not to. It's not that we couldn't, because I think the first day before we were able to get there, we did. And Costa Rica,
I think we chose
not to.
What we looked up and found out is that they said that Medellin has some of the highest rated quality water, like anywhere in the world, because it's one of the things they focus on. And I think Ecuador was like similar to that. They was like, all the water is drinkable, and there was no chlorine taste. We tend to squeeze a little citrus in ours, and still purchase water here and there, but we didn't feel. I don't drink water out of my tap unless I have it going through my filtered pitcher, because it always has a little bit of pipe chlorine kind of taste. I didn't get that.
No.
In the water in either of those places.
We chose to use rideshare. What I wish I had more time to do is the cable car, the trains. I don't know about the buses though. It's something else to ride with the doors open. I'm sorry. I was like, some of the local, so there's several different types of buses, but the ones that I was just like a solid no, they were riding with like they didn't have doors.
Like it was a trolley.
Yes.
Hey, listen, there's an acceptable bougie, and there's just something.
And I was just like, I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I just wasn't ready.
Right.
I think if I lived there and it was going in the direction I needed to go, most of the places we visited in South America, the buses are like 30 cents, 35. The trains were 35 cents. So, I mean, it's not necessarily expensive.
But treat your bus rides like, and even ride share like you treat your weather. There are certain time of the days you do, and certain time of the day you don't.
Right.
In Ecuador, in Mexico City, in Medellin, in Cartagena, don't get on that bus when everybody's going home.
For work,
unless you are just into the whole nuns and the Beatles.
We're saying hopes in a Volkswagen.
Because I mean,
it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people. So, let's see. Housing, Airbnb was great. Most folks that I talked to, most expats that I talked to, said that they stayed in Airbnbs. You do need a cedula to get a lease. And so most of them just kind of hopped neighborhoods to figure out where they wanted to be, and then saw if they could negotiate a longer term stay with their host. So I think that that's going to be the approach in most of the places that we go. Always 1 week rental. Because if it doesn't work out, it's only 1 week and you haven't booked for a month.
I have to say that I was really impressed with where we stayed.
Yeah.
You made a great choice there.
Thank you.
It was a studio, and it was well kept by the owner, the young man who was the host. The area that was in was active, but in all of its activity, we right off our balcony, we could see the supermarket she was talking about is directly in front of us. It never felt like I'm in the middle of chaos. Like I'm dropped in the middle of, you know, the busiest part of town.
Mhm.
But it was like a few minutes to some of the places that we ended up really enjoying. It was less than 10 minutes to the first restaurant we went to and a couple of other restaurants, and they were all and vegan food. I mean, so we'll come to that. But yeah,
Walkability means two things that we have shared, videos that we've shared on our channel before. So there's literally like the place that you put your feet, the sidewalk or non-sidewalk, to move about the city. There were sidewalks everywhere. Sometimes the gradation was to navigate.
And that's probably
sometimes that like I was like it is safer to walk in the streets than the sidewalks to move, but for the most part curb cuts were rare.
But we saw more curb cuts in Medellin than we've seen anywhere else that we've been.
Yes.
Curbs are still high at certain places. The broken sidewalks, and again, I don't know if that's particular areas, or if that's just in general. I know some areas that seemed a little more aged. Sidewalks were obviously a little more challenged, but there were sidewalks everywhere.
Yeah. The second part of walkability, though, is my ability to do activities of daily living without having to feel like I need a car. I'm talking about that I have to use a ride share, or that I would need to purchase a vehicle because I couldn't move around and do the things that I needed to do safely. And so the second part of walkability, the pharmacies, whereas in Panama and Mexico, a lot of Central America, I was just like, there is one pharmacy for every two people. It wasn't that heavily concentrated. It was still very convenient to experience, to go to pharmacies. But the ratio of pharmacies, in Ecuador, there were like 4 pharmacies on a block.
Yeah.
3 pharmacies on a block.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, like
pharmacies were in abundance.
Two for one. I mean, like 2 people, 1 pharmacy.
Right.
But the pharmacy, the grocery store, the butcher, the bakeries, places to buy clothing, like malls, or just shops. I found a balloon shop because y'all may or may not know I twist balloons and do balloon decor, and I got a chance to see that there was one literally a block away from where we were staying. And so when I talk about walkability, it's both of those features, like the infrastructure for me to walk. Is it there? This Colombia made me think a lot about if I were in a walker or a wheelchair. Now, I think about it. I've thought about it in other cities, but it really made me think, could I move around the city if I were super challenged, where I wouldn't be relegated to walking on the street most of the time, because going, what do you call that? Navigating those different gradations would have been more challenging than I needed it to be. But I'm thinking, that's why you have the wheelchairs that have you put the little lift, and it, you'd have to get another. And I didn't even get a chance to do the wheelchair tour the night we were going to do a night tour.
So let me answer this question for Alicia. So the curb cut is, to use where she was going with that, is that part of the where the curb is, where you can put wheeled items up onto the sidewalk. So wheelchairs, bicycles.
It's like a ramp.
Yeah.
Ramp access to the sidewalk. Yeah. Cities probably 25, 30 years ago, started making that standard. 30 years ago, we had 30 years ago, Americans with Disabilities Act under President Clinton, which encouraged accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one feature that not only helped those with mobility issues, but I have had a wagon for work that
Right.
had a lot of things in it.
Right.
As a mom with kids in strollers, I have benefited from curb cuts, but that is not a feature that is standard outside the US,
Mm-hmm.
which would allow you to go from the city street onto the sidewalk
without having to drag up over the curb.
Right.
And when you consider that some of these curbs in some of these Latin American countries are 6, 8 inches,
can be very,
it's not the same as
very
pulling it over a little bitty 3-inch curb.
lit.
Yeah. So those curb cuts, and again, they weren't always perfect and they weren't frequent, but in a lot of the countries that we visited, they've been absent.
Yeah.
And so if you're wheeling someone, or if you're on crutches, or, you know, it makes climbing those curbs, and climbing being a very specific word, a different task.
And one feature, since we're talking about that accessibility, one of the features that Yolanda, I'm trying to remember what her name is, what Yolanda's encouraged me, and after our trip to Spain, that I am now a stickler about, was elevators. So in addition to accessibility, is I might be able to get an apartment in a building, but if they have multiple floors, can I access them outside of a stairwell? As we've shared on this channel before, elevators are not, most of the elevators are small. Some of the newer apartments and condos have larger elevators. And so you want to ask those things if that is an issue for you.
If elevators are even available.
If elevators are even available. So make sure you're looking at your Airbnb, because we were on the 3rd floor or the 4th floor in Puerto Vallarta. It was stairs only.
And not just stairs, it was deep stairs.
Yeah. So
each stair
we have
was
a
2
standard,
stairs.
we have standard riser heights. They are not standard riser.
Those were stretch, step and stretch.
Yeah.
And
so
the elevator in the building in which we stayed was what I consider to be a pretty standard size elevator. We visited. We did a apartment review visitation, and we'll post that. And the elevator was literally like.
No. It was front to back. Like he had to stand in front of me. I had to stand behind him.
Literally.
It was
a box.
Yeah.
And I won't call it a coffin, but it was a box. and you know, it reminded us of that elevator in Spain.
Yeah.
I don't even know if we could have even gotten our suitcases in this elevator.
We could have if we wanted to.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Skills.
We could have been very creative. It would have been some Tetris.
Nikki said there's quite a few curb cuts in Mazatlan.
Excellent.
So that's something to keep in mind.
So yeah, that's why in the groups you ask the questions. We got a chance, and let's see. So workspaces, there are a lot of co-working spaces in the more expatty areas like Poblado, some of the outskirts of Laureles. Had more co-working spaces. There was a co-working space, a half a block, co-office, I think is what they called it, co-office space, about a half a block from us. But if that is important to you, another feature that someone mentioned for housing is finding out if they have a generator. So if the power goes out, making sure that there's a generator for the building that will also keep the elevators. Because if there are generators for the building, they're really trying to keep power to things like the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be a generator for your apartment.
Correct.
You want to ask those questions.
Correct.
So yeah, the whole housing thing,
the city is growing. So there is constant construction, and it is visible and it is audible, not necessarily for me, not necessarily in a disruptive way. And I'm really cautious about that because when we moved to our neighborhood, they were building, and these young men would start at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, banging.
It was loud.
But here's one of the things that I realized.
They are renovating. They were renovating more buildings than constructing new buildings.
That's one thing. Secondly, when you are rested, it's amazing how things don't bother you. So our bed in our Airbnb was at the door because of the studio. So you walk in the door, the bed is right there. And there's a little window, not directly, but over the bed area. And we would open it at night because there's no air conditioning in the building. There's a rotator fan, very well established rotator fan. We would have that window and the bathroom window and the patio door open most of the day when we were inside. And there was a pretty nice circulation of air, especially with the fan blowing. I'm one of those people who can't sleep when it's hot, can't sleep when it's humid. And we were napping with that little fan. And I would wake up in the morning and they would be banging and knocking and I would go back to sleep. Where when we moved here, we were in the middle of whatever life we were trying to get going. And I was just like, I'm going to drive myself. That and because the young folk here also like to play their music. So at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Can't do it. Can't do it. So yes, I totally forgot about most of the places we were researching housing did not have many splits, whereas in like in Ecuador they did. So a lot of that ability to compare was really nice to have back to back to back, so that you're like, oh, I didn't know that they didn't have that when we just had that in another area. So workspaces, local connection. There are a lot of expats. If you're not in the main Columbia group, the women's groups, there are a lot. I think it's Black in Medellin was one of the groups, but I used the women in Medellin group. That's where I went to look for drivers. It's where I went to look. Several of them mentioned that they had WhatsApp. I was in those groups ahead of time. I'm going to talk a little bit about the healthcare because I didn't plan to get sick in Ecuador, but I did. I had a good experience. I chose an elective something to do in Medellin. I saw a chiropractor. So getting a recommendation, I saw several people recommending this chiropractor. What the chiropractor told me was there are about 25 chiropractors in the city of Medellin that are certified, trained and certified, or licensed. And so it is something that is growing in the area. So I paid $33 to see a chiropractor and have physical therapy sessions. So I was having some low back pain. So take care of yourselves, take care of your backs. I think just over time, doing all the things that I was doing, it aggravated an underlying issue even more on this trip. And I was just like, I planned to do the massage. Lorana, I'm so sad that I did not get my massage on Monday or Friday because y'all, they do a 2-for-1 in And I think it's, in Cuenca, and it was like $20.
$20 a piece.
Yeah.
So we come back
So
just for the massage.
We're going to go back just for the massage. So yeah, $20, you pay $20 and it's the buy one, get one free on Mondays and Fridays.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2 for 1. So yes, I can tell you, I had a very good session. I noticed an immediate difference. No, the front desk staff did not speak English, but I communicated on WhatsApp with the office and got an appointment within a day. It took a minute because we were going back and forth. They were like, "What do you need?" And I was like, "This is what I need." And they were like, so we kind of went back and forth, and they got my information and set me up an appointment for the next day. And then
at a
chiropractor's office, and to see the in-house physical therapist that did work with me on the same day. And I noticed an immediate difference. And they set me up for another appointment that I couldn't keep because we decided not to stay. But to know that that resource was there, that it was financially accessible,
very much so,
well qualified. The doctor spoke more English than the staff and really listened. She took a detailed history from me. I was like, no, I've never been to a chiropractor. I've had body work done, but I've never been to a chiropractor. I'm in pain enough for me to say, I will take the recommendation of other people who have said that you were good, but work your magic. Anything is better than going without this help. And they did a wonderful job.
Really, really respectful. You can tell language is a necessity. I don't know if we're emphasizing that enough. And language is a necessity, not just for your comfort and for the communication process, but I want to stop feeling like people are having to accommodate for me.
Yeah.
Clearly, as a lady standing in line next to me in Cuenca said to me, I was like, I'm really struggling. I was trying to feel my little words, and she turned and she said, "At least you're trying." And that was encouraging to me.
Yeah.
Because, it's showing that, hey, we see you making the effort. You're not forcing us to try, and you're not trying. But at the same time, I want to make sure that taking out some of in situations like a medical procedure, there are specific things that you want to be a little closer to making sure that you're giving and receiving the necessary information. And they brought paperwork in English.
Yeah.
But then they had to sit down and translate that back for themselves.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if my language skills were better if we would have been able to fill it out in Spanish. But I mean, right. It highlights, being more intentional about meeting some of the basic things, and it's not necessarily requirements, but some of the basic things that makes interacting in these spaces more fulfilling.
But I had also looked into, there is more medical tourism happening in all of the countries that we visited. Costa Rica, each of them are known for more things. Because somebody asked us if we were visiting Ecuador for their high quality, world-renowned dental care. I had planned to get, altitude sickness took my whole game out about what I was planning to do around medical tourism in Ecuador. But you can do the full body, what do you call that? The full physical, like you can do in Turkey, in Malaysia. They are growing that. I got recommendations for that, but I also had 2 names of medical translators. someone that could go with me to, if I needed to go to the emergency room. I found that information out ahead of time. And I'm really glad I did, because if I'd had any other issues that I really needed to engage the medical staff and make sure that what was communicated to me for my care, or what I needed to share about my pain, my discomfort, my concerns, were properly translated. Knowing, even with your growing language skills, if you're entering a medical environment or a legal environment, you want someone that is a certified a certified translator for medical or for legal translation. So, yes, I agree with you, Stephen.
What's going on, Steve? Long time. Yeah.
So, yeah,
it really should be a required second language, with the amount of people who speak Spanish, even in this country.
Right.
And having access to that language. I think the challenge is teaching it younger, as well as making it available in a way for those older learners that makes it applicable to us. I'm willing to learn. She exposed me to some things I'm gonna have to sit down and listen to, because I think listening is my biggest challenge. I can decipher the hand motions. I can decipher the body language, but when they're talking,
survive. That is not how. I don't want to survive. I really want.
I'm
really leaving. Actually, language is a part of my quality of life.
Correct.
And so, one of my quality of life indicators, and if I'm not willing to invest in the language, then I don't think that I'll have the quality of living. I'll be limited in the access to the things that really are important to me, like making local connections, being able to share or engage or say something nice to someone else.
Don't even know when I'm laughing at something that they're making fun of me or they told a good joke.
So 2 things that I wanted to bring out, even though we didn't meet with an attorney. The digital nomad visa for Colombia is one route, because the income requirement is less than $700 a month. So you would need to show at least 6 months, I believe it is, of bank statements where you have a contract and they've already been paying you. It does not mean that it only costs $700, less than $700 a month to live there, but that is what they ask you to show for economic solvency, in addition to the other requirements. So the digital nomad visa is usually how most folks are there. But I was really surprised of the number of people who say, I can be here 6 months, then I'm gonna be here 6 months. And so that's what they do, is they enter and exit based on the tourist visa. Some bump over to Ecuador, some go to Europe, some go to Southeast Asia, but they've made Medellin their base. And I can say for sure that I think Colombia is a great place, because their international, Medellin itself, its international airport can connect me anywhere in the world easily and at a pretty reasonable price. I probably would say Panama City would be number 1, but a close second would be Medellin, to being able to be easily connected for, if travel is what you're centering, as I think it will be for us, that Colombia is a great landing spot. And then I was looking up student visas, because y'all know that's my real flex, is either student visas that are culinary. So you can take culinary courses or language courses. Most of the ones that I was looking at, so the National Department of Education identifies programs. So some are 10 weeks, some are university-based, but they are certified and can give you the documentation that you need to access the student visa. Some of the programs didn't look too bad. I mean, 10 weeks for $1,500. These are intensive Spanish language courses specifically for the dialect in Medellin, because y'all know regionally, Spanish is not Spanish all over. There are dialectal differences. And so what we're finding is that the student visa can give us access. Nikki knows I had also planned to interview for a job on the teacher's website that I found. I have a graduate degree in education. And so they had it was kind of the learning center person for the international school. That position was available. And I was like, I was whispering when I got to Columbia, and I was like, I can't do it. But the student visa, work visa, if you can find a position there, is also, I think, a great way to enter countries and more countries. I did not know that Ecuador had a digital nomad visa until somebody in the group was mentioning that was what they were doing. So I noticed that, like in Europe, the economic solvency requirements are higher. Things that folks have to watch out for if you are working remote, that, some countries require, if you are in their country and you're making money, regardless if it's on the ground or remote, that you file that, you get a work visa, you pay taxes. Other places, as long as you're not making money from the local people, go forth and multiply. So I am really conscious and looking at what are access points that don't tip that tax requirement, or countries where if I was earning my money outside of the country, that I wouldn't have that double taxation. So yes, Miss Evelyn. So let's give a little bit of the reason why. Initially, I thought we were going to go to Bogota. The first part of our trip, we booked ahead of time. I decided to kind of try to flex when I was like, well, we know what we're going to do when we get to Ecuador. And we had people on the ground, and there was a lot of flexibility. And so I just took guidance from them on that. Getting to going to Colombia, we were like, well, maybe we should Cali, Medellin, and Bogota are all three places that are highly spoken of by expats. So Medellin is known as the eternal spring. Bogota is known as the eternal fall. And Cali and Cartagena are much warmer. They're lower elevations. But Bogota, after my altitude sickness in Cuenca, I knew I could not go to Bogota because we had pre-researched the altitude for all the potential countries. Y'all, GPT is the total flex. I asked them, here are the countries that we want to go to. Here are the cities. Here are our quality of life, indicators, cost of living, those kinds of things. And here are my questions about altitude in chart form, lay out, the places. And so I chose definitely not to go to Bogota after Cuenca because of that issue. When people say eternal spring, if you have allergies, raise your hand in the chat. Eternal spring is not what we want to hear.
Yeah.
And that's something else I want to say about the environment is when you are in eternal spring, that means things are blooming. In addition to the air pollution things that I was tracking, which literally sometimes in the morning I couldn't see the mountains. I knew it was going to be a heavy air pollution morning. I was going to need to wear my mask. Or that's the morning where I wasn't going to go out until later in the day when more of it had dissipated, or that I was safe to go out after it rained.
And we'll have a video showing, because when we say couldn't see the mountains, where we lived in our last rental home here in the States, out in the distance, we could see mountains. And in this small city, we talk about pre and post COVID. During COVID, it was clear. We could see it clearly. During a normal day, there's days we couldn't see but the outline of a shadow. These are mountains that are up close.
Yeah.
And I mean, like up close. And there were times of the day where the visibility on the top of the mountain was very low.
Not just top of the mountain.
Well, I mean,
to be able to see in that direction.
Yeah. And
so I have to pay attention to that
right.
as a asthma sufferer, but also I was having to mask because I could smell things blooming. Like I could taste the pollen.
When I can smell it and taste it,
if you're an allergy sufferer, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
When I can smell it and taste it, it's a big deal.
So yeah.
And I had to put on a mask a couple of days, and usually, except for this little town we live in, I've never really had a problem. This city here kills me, and it was palatable in my throat.
Yeah.
You can hear it over time with senses and sinuses. And so those things are things to pay attention to. I still think.
Oh, I don't want to forget to, yes, Lorana, the professional visa with an associate's degree is definitely available. I totally forgot to mention that when we were talking about the visas in Ecuador. But
I think Medellin is still high on the
we could land here.
We could land there. I really enjoyed the energy, the vibe, the accessibility.
We haven't even talked about the food.
Yeah, I was getting my next statement. We haven't even
talked about the food. We took so many food pictures.
You would think we were there on a food trip.
Yeah.
I mean, we
and listen.
Okay.
The vegan life can be lived in abundance.
I didn't know.
And with joy.
There are a few cities in the US that may compete with the number of vegan places that were in Medellin.
So I want to say plant forward also, so that those who are like vegan.
Well, because there were both. There were places that were strictly vegan, that were like major restaurants. And then there were places that had a lot of diverse vegan options. A lot of times what I find is when I'm trying to find places for us to go is there'll be like one thing on the menu, two things on the menu, a thing here and a thing there. And one of them is like, that's not even viable. That's not even, why did they even mark that as vegan? It's a salad. You know, I'm using it as an example. That's not even an option. But we're talking about diverse
or
in the categories on a menu. Each category would have at least something that was in a vegetarian option. So you're talking about, if you got 7 categories, you got 7 options.
What I want to make sure that I also say is where I think a lot in the States we get caught up is we've got Beyond Burger, we've got Impossible Burger, we've got Morning Star, we've got these variety. No, when I say plant forward, I'm talking about they are doing amazing things with vegetables and fruit. And
I had a vegan burger the last day that I would change some of the format of how it was constructed. But when you're talking about just flavor and texture, that was a very good vegan burger. And I'm saying that as a plant forward person and not a plant-based person. I do eat some meats, but I enjoy a vegan meal if it's well prepared. And I would probably say I ate 50 to 60% of my meals, particularly in Medellin, were plant-based meals.
Now, I just want to say,
come on,
the Jamaican restaurant.
Oh man,
they put their foots.
I had the jerk chicken. Wasn't playing with that.
They put their foots.
Listen,
in the Caribbean, and I had a full menu of options. Now, did I take advantage of that? Somewhat, but
when you talk about often what happens with Caribbean places that are far from the Caribbean is they're trying to find those ingredients or have those ingredients shipped. These young people took the local ingredients. They made rice and peas with black-eyed peas. I almost don't ever want to have rice and peas with pigeon peas and rice or red beans again. And I mean, no disrespect, but it was a whole vibe. And I'm a big black-eyed peas person, black-eyed peas and sweet potatoes. And it was, the jerk chicken was stellar. And it was probably, I don't write reviews, Yelp and Google reviews and all that. I've been writing reviews
because when it's good, it's good. We visited. I said go have a food adventure, and he brought me back lunch from Ginger.
Mm-hmm.
It's a couple that literally he's cooking. There's a
I'm going to post the video of that.
The counter. Like a bar counter, and you're watching him prepare your tacos, your salads, your whatever, right? I mean, it's so intimate.
My bedroom is probably bigger than the space they were working in. And it was open to the sidewalk and it was really comfortable. Great couple. I really enjoyed the time and conversation with them. She spoke English because she used to work in New York as on Wall Street. Mm-hmm. He had a few words, so she would translate to him, and he was talking, and he let me stand there and record over with him. And this is a vegetarian restaurant, vegan vegetarian restaurant, and he prepared a very high quality. Hers was a bowl, mine were two mushroom tacos, and it was he pulled out the metal tongs, they putting little things on it. I mean, it was a great experience
everywhere. I had no problems finding being
and people went out of their
overstuffed, well-fed.
People went out of their way to be engaging in the process. It was more than just customer service. It was these people, and they would talk with us. And we had conversations, and a lot of them were young. The young lady at the first night we ate, our first little place, our son's age, but when you are in an environment where people are okay with you being different, nobody's staring at you, nobody's following you, you don't feel, at no point during the course of these 5 weeks did I feel that there were, in general, people trying to take advantage of me. They're always opportunists. And a lot of them drive taxi cabs, and I mean that's their business. I'm not mad at them. Okay, they do what they do to survive.
Right.
But in general, I did not get the impression that people were trying to pull a wool over my eyes. We'd go places, and I'd be like, I'm trying to ask questions. I'd be like, does anybody speak English? And they would turn around and say, Pablo, or Billy, and there'd be that one person would come over and be like, I give you this much, and we'd struggle. I do a little bit of Spanish, they do a little bit of English, but it was a joyful experience. And Medellin, like Cuenca, like Costa Rica, like parts of Panama, was a whole vibe. This was probably the first time. And even though we did not personally connect like face to face with any, well, that's what I'm going to say, with no expats. We had one expat close experience.
Several expat experiences.
You're right.
In Medellin, because I met my sisters there. So, I mean, when the ladies that I had gotten to know in the different groups, I met several of them in person. Walking groups, they plan trips together. All of that exists. I see that those exist in different ways in each country. I think it's healthy to have both local and expat connections, because there are things I know I couldn't have done in many of these countries, or that I could have known, like Envigado. It might have been the ideal similarity to how we live life here in the US, but most of them drive cars. So that kind of lifestyle doesn't fit the lifestyle that I want. What we were able to do in these trips is to clarify, because we do the things that are a part of our everyday. I cook, so I need to find out how much the food costs.
Right. How accessible is the kitchen spaces in the places we stayed in?
Right.
Because that's a big deal. That there was no oven in our Airbnb, but there was a stovetop and a microwave. So you have to then be creative about what you're preparing. We visited a place that, again, didn't have an oven, but they had an air fryer, toaster oven. And I mean, you got to be a lot more creative in how you approach these places. I would consider this city one, if not the only city, that I would consider to possibly be drivable, where I would feel fairly comfortable if I had to driving.
That I think from two perspectives. One, what's happening on the road is similar to how we drive. So if there's a turnaround lane, it's obvious, and people aren't just doing things. I'm just like, how did you know to do that? And
the roundabouts seem far more reasonable than the roundabouts near where I live.
He hates.
I have a personal political endeavor to cancel all roundabouts, but they weren't out of the way. And even though, and as pedestrian walking in Latin America, in Central and South America, is not. I don't want to say it's not priority, but it's not priority.
Yeah, there's no pedestrians have the right of way.
But I found that more people in cars were willing to pause and let people cross the road than in other countries we had been in. Yeah. And very few people were barreling at you if you were crossing the road in the middle of a change. Where in some places that we had been, it's like, wait, pause, run, wait, pause, run. This was kind of like, be mindful that the how the lights flow was slightly different. Usually it's both sides, north and south, or east and west, are going. Sometimes only one side would be going, and another direction would be going in a different way. And so sometimes that was a pedestrian thing, but it wasn't so complicated that I spent a lot of time staring in on the sidewalk going, when do I go? And when there was a pedestrian walk sign, it was respected.
Yeah.
We've been to some countries where, like, the bike riders, they don't respect any lights, stop signs, whatever. It's just when they find a space, they're going. And that didn't feel like that.
I have to say, the pinnacle experience for me was at the grocery store. So we went to the chiropractor. We walked because it was early in the morning. We walked. We got the morning pastries, and then I was like, "Hey, there's another supermarket." So we're shopping in the supermarket. It felt like, okay, if you know, you know. You don't go to the bank at the first of the month in the States. You just don't, because you know what's happening.
You don't go on Friday,
and you don't go on Fridays. So
and it felt like a first of the month Friday.
First of the month Friday at the grocery store. So we're trying to sort out, can I find the things that I like to eat here?
We're picking up.
It was kind of like a Walmart, neighborhood Walmart. It was about that size with those kind of options in it. So. Yeah. Not a full supermarket, but, we could pick up a few fresh vegetables and fruit and things like that. So
we're trying to decide on these lines.
We're getting ready to check out. Now the lines are
line
all the way into the aisles.
So the lines run, okay. So aisles run directly across from the checkout line. So if I'm on an aisle, directly at the end of this aisle is our checkout lines, which make it difficult then because if you're still going up and down the aisles, you're moving in between where people are standing
in line
to get to the cash register. So at first we didn't realize that because they're not standing in the cross aisle. So you're thinking, okay, this is 2-3 people at these cash registers, and you look back and realize there's a whole lot of people going down the aisle.
So I decide I'm gonna put him in line. I'm gonna go to the restroom.
The first line I get in is a long line. Then I see some lines that look shorter. So I move down and I move into a space behind an older lady who's got a heavy buggy full of grocery items. And there's another young lady at the grocery item at the cash register who's got a full buggy. A smaller, older lady pulls up behind me. She's got like 2 things in her hand. I've got stuff in my hand. She got me Rachel Ray again without a buggy. And another older lady comes. You notice these are all ladies who probably were 60, 70 or older. And another lady comes up behind her who's got another full buggy. And she begins to evaluate what's going on in our line. And they're having a full Spanish conversation. Clearly that includes me in some form or fashion as they're talking to me. I'm doing that because I don't know what else is going on. And so the last lady who comes up, she walks to the lady in front of me and she's rubbing her back and she's saying something to her and she's pointing at me and she's pointing at the lady behind her. And she takes the little lady behind me who's got 2 things and she puts her in front of the lady in front of me. And so the lady standing in front of me has her eyebrow up like, you're not going to move him in front of me too. And she's like, no, he's strong. He can take it. And so D comes up.
Yeah. So I decide I'm going to look for detergent because that was the last thing on our list, but I wanted you to get in line, to move us forward. I come and so she starts to speak to me in Spanish. I'm respectful. I'm nodding. I might understand every other word. I understand her body language more.
She's clearly making some clear. And I've handed her 1 or 2 things.
So she's asking him, is that your wife? And he's nodding, and I'm like, I'm with him. And so I don't know, y'all. This gray hair might be the flex I need for Central and South America. Because she was like, whereas if he had been alone, he's strong. Now he's got this wife with gray hair.
She walked into another line next to us in the next aisle and told those people that we were going to be in front of her. And she put us in front of them in line so that we could check out. And we're just winking and waving. Everybody's looking like, I ain't arguing with her. When D came up, she was like, what's going on? I said, we got the line leader over here. We're not arguing with Professor Tiny here. I mean, but she waved.
If she had approached to hug me, I probably would have, because her energy was so inviting, and clearly there was a communication gap, but language isn't the only way you can communicate. You can communicate respect. You can communicate with your body language. You can communicate empathy or joy. I want to be able to say things. I want to be able to hear and understand and give something back to a conversation, which is all of what we ask you guys to do here. I want to say hello to my friend Giovanna as well, who joined us. Yes, it is. Oh, y'all, Lorana, we're gonna show the videos.
I'm working on I'm working on the video tonight
in the Mercado, baby. The hustle and flow, but the community.
Yeah.
The video that Lorana has on her page today about buying the flowers, y'all. These are where the experiences happen.
I was having a ball. The
grocery store.
negotiating with those old ladies, it was different from negotiating with the guys
in Marrakesh.
In Marrakesh. So
no, that was barter to the death.
Yeah. So hey, Giovanna, good to see you. Hey, Pamela Jones. Hey, Sister
Dr.
Kimani, what's going on?
Yeah, so Medellin is just the place that I feel like I can find a home that is, it's got all the right elements for me. I'm going to have some challenges. It looks like the elevation is not at sea level. There's still an elevation. But what I realized is that sometimes I need more time in those spaces, or that I choose the time that I'm going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So we looked at Southeast Asia. I was like, we've looked at Thailand. I was like, maybe we only need to be there during burning season. So we're looking at maybe the end of 2025. We spend some time there so that I have fewer. I'm going to be challenged, but I have fewer challenges. Get to know these beautiful places.
Okay, so Pam.
Oh,
okay.
Girl, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just gonna cut to the chase.
No.
Okay,
so here's something I need to say. Scouting trips, for those who are apprehensive about whether or not they should, scouting trips are a necessity. They are they are intrinsic to setting up what is a part of what you want to do and where you want to go. But one of the things that we said on this trip is they don't necessarily make things easier if you're open to learning and growing.
And you don't need as much time as I thought. I don't have 6-8 weeks to spend in one place.
Right. But the benefit that I think Dee and I had with visiting these 5 different cities in the last 5 weeks in 4 different countries has allowed us to have some very direct comparison experiences that are up close and personal.
Yeah.
Costa Rica was 5 weeks ago, but the similarities and differences of the people, the culture, the interaction, the opportunities, the availabilities, the lifestyle, the traffic patterns, the air quality, it's up and close. I have to think back a year to Mexico to make comparisons to it, where we moved from one space to the next. And I've been bit by the Colombian bug, the Ecuadorian bug, a little bit of the Panamanian bug, and a little bit of the Costa Rica bug, because there are things I think we could make work in any of those spaces.
Yeah.
There are things that we have to be very honest with ourselves about, the challenges that come with each of those spaces for us, environmentally, financially,
community,
distance, community. I think we can be a part of some great expat communities. I think we can be a part of some even better local communities. What's the long-term impact potentially on what our expectations are and our needs? And so we are in a heavy evaluative space that now also, ironically, re-includes this home we have in the United States.
Yeah.
And that's a conversation we're going to have separately, but it makes you stop and say, what am I learning? What do I bring back to the table? How does that affect what I can and cannot? If I can't leave today, or can't leave at all, what's the impact on the space that I'm in? And if I'm going to go and interact in those spaces, what am I taking? What about me am I taking? What about me am I selling? What about me am I burning to the ground before I move to somebody else's country? Because I don't want that to go with me.
We traveled with 1 checked bag and 2 carry-on bags. It made me question life.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was trying to figure out how to dump one of those before we left. Do I need these things with me? I could have made better choices. And one of the things that I learned on this trip is I didn't realize one of the addictions that is incorporated in American culture is convenience.
Mm.
And I'm a psychology major, so I understand the weight of addiction using that word. You don't realize how integrated instant things are. So microwaves, drive-through,
box stores.
Yes, where I can go to one place and find everything. It took me 2 countries to find an umbrella. Okay. 2, because you have to realize, I was just like, okay, so where's a CVS kind of store, a Walgreens kind of store? Panama, I was able to kind of do a one-to-one match with that. But also there's the butcher. And then there is the mercado where sometimes you got everything. You got a butcher, you got the fruit, you got the vegetables, you got the flowers. Sometimes it's very focused on clothes sometimes, and you have to make room for that level of time allocation. Because I believe that from back when we were looking at building the Ford Model T and the assembly line, how it was said that we could go from a 5-day work week to a 3-day work week, and then we'll have all this free time. The trick is, well, if I can do more things and fewer time, then I can multitask, which is the biggest brain lie. I can do more things at one time. Are you experiencing life? That is, as much as we enjoy content creating, wanting to get photos and videos of things, the longer we were on this trip, the more I was like, yes, there are things that we will capture, but I want to live in this moment.
We have lost the value of effort. Convenience is great. Don't get me wrong. I was having to pour water into the refrigerator container in the refrigerator so that we can use the water in the door. So it was cool instead of having a pipe line into the refrigerator. But okay, and we need to stop saying countries. This country doesn't have. Even if, or it doesn't have name brand. It doesn't have your name brand. There was just about an equivalent of something that we wanted in just about every. Things were different.
This example right here from Javon about if it's there this week,
it might not. Yeah,
you better get it this week because it may not be there next week.
I miss my Tide and a dryer, but planning and preparation and intentionality of life make things just as convenient as last-minuting things. Because I know there's no microwave. I can't microwave a meal running out the door in the morning. So either I'm up earlier so that I can properly prepare myself something to eat, or I'm prepared to not eat until I'm wherever I am, or wherever I'm going.
Same thing for walkability. Yes, the Uber rides locally in Medellin were $1, $2, $3. Even with going from the different parts of a city. But if it was around, well, we kind of cut it off at somewhere between 10 and 12 minutes because I don't know where they got 15, 20 minutes, 15, 16 minutes for the chiropractor.
Yeah,
I was like, that was not
it
a
took
15, 16 minute walk.
It took him 10 minutes to drive there. So I was like, man, and most of the walk directions were within a reasonable, it really was that amount of time, but that was one of the few that I was like, yeah.
But building in that time for I need to leave here.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to be in a place at a particular time. Those of us who, I feel like the move abroad is perfect for those of us who are neurodivergent. Like the way you have to intentionally be in spaces requires you to be fully present and not, I got to think about this on top of that, on top of that, on top of that. That things are coming at you from so many different angles that it is overwhelming to your neurological system, that people move at the pace of life,
Mm-hmm.
can move at the pace of life. Now, I'm not telling you that tech is the tech hub
Mm-hmm.
of South America is Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
The newest tech hub is growing.
Mm-hmm.
In Colombia. So don't get it twisted. They got prime
Mm-hmm.
technology businesses happening in these spaces that we've considered lower tiered in what is presented by the media. And so there's, in many of the places that we're visiting, there's a duality happening. I could be on the street in Ecuador
Mm-hmm.
with a man on a horse and a car, a driven car, and a Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
All on the same street.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In Medellin, I could hire technically a tuk-tuk.
The guys, the young man and the young woman who went by us in pulling the carts piled high with I don't even know if it was trash or luggage. I mean, not luggage, furniture. I mean, it was bundles, and it probably was a good 8-10 feet above their height that they were walking down the street in the traffic with, pulling down the road, and it didn't seem out of place, and it didn't seem back country or poor. It just was a part of the process.
And integrated. They are blending. And we don't live. It is an inconvenience when someone is riding a bike in the States, in many places.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say everywhere,
mm-hmm.
but in many places, it's an inconvenience for people to walk. Kind of like that commercial where, everybody's paying with the card, and then someone is using cash and it slows down and everything. And everybody's like, why are you? No, we can live in harmony with nature. We can live in harmony with the old ways and the new ways. I think I like that bridge because it means I can access things at various points. I didn't want to belabor.
I appreciate this comment here by Agent Grateful. As people, when you go to the grocery store and you got to walk with this stuff back to the house,
you thinking real hard.
You being
do I really want that?
Purposeful about what I'm going to be carrying back with me, whether I'm dragging it in a buggy or holding it in my hand.
Yeah.
And it also means that you go to the store with purpose and you're thinking about or have thought about
how long am I going to use this?
Yeah. What am I preparing? There's a focus to this process. And we're not talking about there's a simplicity to it that can be mistaken for lower quality or lower quality of living or lower standards or country or whatever words we use to downgrade quality. I made some banging meals off those handful of vegetables we got with Lorana at the Mercado, and miss it So standing in that line with the old lady who helped us get into another line, that was a blessing, because what I walked out of there with, I made us meal. I went home, was it that night or the next night? And completely, because we were trying to decide how to get back home with this weather, and completely prepped everything that evening that helped us be prepared to have some meals into the next city we went to before we flew out yesterday.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's.
Yes, Giovanna. Yes. Simplicity frees us to focus on what's important.
So
I
these
spent
experiences,
a lot of time sitting on the, just looking out the balcony, just watching, allowing my brain to be slower, to value. I didn't need a bunch of stuff. I didn't go to be a tourist in Medellin. It might come off like we did a foodie tour. It might come off like that. We were trying to be intentional about how we moved together, how we listened to each other's impression of what we were encountering, but also really taking stock about how I felt in this place. Could I do the things? I was saying the first week we were away, and I know we're closing. First week we were away, I was all about our rest.
Correct.
We were sleeping late, we was eating. I wasn't trying to have you cook, even though we cooked a little bit in San Jose.
We'd vacation.
The next week I said, well, I got to get on my game because blah, blah, blah. And so I literally went full out. Content development, getting our new business off of the ground, things like that. And so early days, late nights. By the second week, I was sick. I don't think it was just because of some of the environmental things I was encountering. I think my body was rejecting going back to that. And so with intention that the sickness will bring to you by Ecuador, I was resting. And my body was like, we are resting. And then it would allow, as I began to hydrate and get on the altitude sickness medication and things like that, that I was able to go out and experience more that Ecuador had to offer. And so by the time I got to Colombia, by the time we got to Medellin, I was like, I will not push myself. I am looking for to experience a place and not try. I did want to do the cable cars and go to the beautiful parks and kayak, and I wanted to do all of those things. What my body called me to was to pace myself. And I think out of everything, that time in Medellin, I got it. I got it because I was listening to myself, to my body. I was listening to you. And I think I was the most in sync in that city. I'm not sure if I just got the Colombian bug. I think I also got, it was like I learned enough about myself that now that's what I want to pull forward.
Each space, Dr. Linda saying,
yes,
being instead, each space gave us the time.
Yes.
And time allowed us the opportunity to engage in a way that everyday life does not allow. I appreciate you allowing me to do this experience with you, to share in this experience with you. It is a challenge. Hold on.
It must have. Oh my. How technical. Hold on. Oh.
That's not good. Is it charging? That's the cord is split. Is it charging?
What?
Yeah. Is it charging? Is it about to go out?
I see green, so.
Okay. All right. So we're having some cord issues. Listen.
Okay.
We appreciate you all being here because we don't know how long this is going to last. We are thankful for every opportunity to share this experience with you. We will be sharing more.
Yeah, we will be sharing more focus on, instead of just interviewing people in other places,
right.
We're going to be talking about sharing what we have done. So today I cleaned out one box and threw it away. I'm telling y'all, things are coming off the walls. They're being listed, because if I'm going to have that lifestyle, I could do things different. I could simplify my life here in the States and travel more. That may be an option, but I think I want to give myself the benefit of place on top of the learning that I'm doing for taking more of my time back, connecting with the people that I love, and rest. Y'all, if the vibrations here are different, I will share about coming back here on Saturday and the experience I had when we left Cartagena and came back into Miami. The sensory shock was instant, that it literally caused nausea. You need a different place to give your body a break so that it recognizes that's too much.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much.
We're H&D Abroad. I'm Herman, the beautiful D. We're going to try to figure out how to fix our computer. And we'll be seeing you all probably in just a few days. Watch for videos because we're going to be posting them. Like, share, subscribe, be a part of our community. We'll see you all soon.
Bye for now.